Jamie,
The man.
you ready? All right. I would like to call to order this Saugatuck City Council meeting of February 27th, 2023. Would you all please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
To the flag, of the United States of America, to the republic, it stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You were there.
Would the clerk please call the roll?
I don't know. I know it's red.
Here.
Dean.
Here.
Gardner,
Here.
Leo,
Here.
Lewis,
Here.
Muncy,
Here.
Stanton.
Here.
All present. I have no comments at this time. City Manager, do you have any comments you'd like to share?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, as a formality, tonight, we're going to be going into a closed session to talk about my evaluation for the record and to be placed in the minutes. Please note that I am requesting this evaluation be discussed in closed session.
Very good. Thank you. On agenda changes, I would like to offer an agenda change. We have Dean Campica here, Allegan County Commissioner. I would like to add him as a guest speaker. Do I have a motion and a second to do so?
So moved.
Second. Motion Gardner, second Lewis. All in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Motion carries. We will have Dean as our guest speaker, which takes us right to item 7 if there are no further agenda changes. Seeing none. Dean, you have the floor.
Hi.
Something that I haven't done in the past is, as far as I think, many times I forget what county services we have. You're going, okay, you mean we have all these services? So I made a little packet for you. I just want to go through like veteran services, a guide to landlord tenant actions, senior services. I'm on that. I help chair that. Allen County Legal Assistance on point as far as community mental health. The health department, we just had the health department give us a report last Thursday. And they just came up with a 3-year evaluation on how to get better. I mean, I can't say enough about them. And if you go to ellencounty.org/health department, they have just a letter that they put out like every other month, just saying, children, here's ways to improve families as far as family structures. Here's what you have for all these different services that we have. So I just challenge you to take a look at that, what it is. But stuff from the health department, parks department, community, the medical care facility, our transportation, what we have for it. I'll just leave that with you a minute. So you can just put it downstairs for the people that would walk in. Also just want to bring up, at our last meeting, we also had something in regards to our 911 dispatch. I helped chair that committee also. And I was taken back a little bit. There was 70,000 calls per service that came in. There was 47,000 calls that the sheriff's department took, 13,000 calls that EMS took in, and another 8,000 that the fire departments took in. And I was like, that many calls. When you look back the last 3 years, we're increasing it by about 3,000 calls a year. So obviously we're on a 5-year plan as far as to look at what do we need for infrastructure needs? What do we have to do as a county to stay ahead of it with the sheriff's department as far as the numbers that are there? With the infrastructure that we have, and then to think of us being the 3rd fastest growing county in the state of Michigan, the growth needs that cities have, that townships have, we're trying to go and say, what do we have to do to stay ahead of it? Also, if you're interested, obviously they're trying to reopen the Palisades again. If you'd look up the Holtec nuclear design, Holtec, HOLTECS, Holtec's design. There's an inventor that invented a new nuclear reactor to go in there that's much safer. And he's petitioned us saying, would you help support me to go to the governor to try to reopen this? And he can put his new plant back on the Palisades plant, along with all the different coal plants that they're discharging. So take a look at what that is. And then just lastly, just to say to you that we are on a 5-year plan. I've mentioned that before. We're right in the middle of that to say, what do we need for finances to do the capital needs that we have? But the bigger thought on that is what must we do in looking at what the people asked us to do? So we're just in the middle of doing that. But Scott, thanks for letting me speak a minute and have a great meeting.
Thank you. You're always welcome here. Thank you. Thank you, Dean. We are now at item 8 on our agenda. This is public comment on agenda items only. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Please identify yourself and your location of residence for the benefit of the clerk. I'll open it up to anyone that's here in the audience that wishes to make public comment. I've got no takers here. I have one individual on the Zoom who appears to be shopping at Demond's. Ed, any interest in making a public comment between the chips and the other aisle? Okay, you good? Any comment? No? Okay, fine. Keep.
Get us some coffee.
Anybody else on the Zoom call that would like to offer public comment? I don't see anyone. All right, with that, we will close our public comment period. Item 9, we have our consent agenda. This is a roll call. And we have 2 items, so we will have 2, well, we can do them in one because it's consent agenda. So we have the regular city council meeting minutes from February 13th, 2023, page 3 of your packet. And we also have the special city council meeting minutes from February 16th, 2023. That's also page 10 of your packet. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
Motion Lewis, second Baldwin. Any discussion, any changes, additions, edits to the consent agenda items?
Yeah.
I see nothing. So this is a roll call. Would the clerk please call the roll for both items?
Baldwin.
Yes.
Kane.
Yes.
Gardner.
Yes.
Leo.
Yes.
Lewis.
Yes.
Muncy.
Yes.
Stanton.
Yes.
Great, thank you. Consent agenda is approved. Item number 10, staff reports, boards, commissions, and committees. These start on page 15 of your packet. The first report we have is the city manager. Anything you'd like to highlight, Ryan?
Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to highlight that the Parks and Public Works Committee is going to be meeting tomorrow morning at 10 a.m.
Great.
They're focused on 4 main projects, which is visioning the playground village square space, redoing that, looking at ideas for that. Glenna DeYoung is going to present on that tomorrow.
Wonderful.
Blue Star Trail, multimodal path, airport property, and Mount Baldhead and Park Street. So the subcommittees or the study groups are going to come back and report their findings.
Great.
And that's it, Mr. Mayor. Happy to
Anything,
answer your questions.
anything for the manager?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, everybody. Question on the Park and Public Works Committee. I'm intrigued by the airport property, particularly. I know I've watched a couple of the meetings and there's a lot of discussion regarding some recreation complexes. I know it's not fully formed yet. But it does bring up in my mind a discussion that I think the council should be having here in the very near future about appropriate use for that property. We've owned that property for, no one can seem to remember. I've asked a couple of local historians and no one can quite remember how the city would acquire the property. It's about 170 acres, I believe.
Yes.
And I really think the council should be looking at a land use study for that because there's a number of different good uses for that property that I've had a number of suggestions from constituents and others. So I would recommend that we have that as part of that conversation for best use for that property going forward, because it's an asset and there's a lot of different options for it.
Anything else for the manager?
I just wanted to say, I really appreciate the tidbits at the end now. Those are, I think those are wonderful. It's a good reminder. So thank you so much for including those.
You're welcome. And Mr. Mayor,
Yeah,
I have some comments about the airport property. if I
Please,
may, In
please.
response to Mr. Gardner.
no, absolutely.
So in researching the files on the airport property, I ran across a study, I think it was done in 2012. It was exactly what you're describing, a land use study. I think it was
Great.
performed by Williams and Works. So a lot of good stuff in that study. Also, part of the discussion for tomorrow is a proposal that we received from Outdoor Discovery Center to kind of do a land use analysis as well, focused on creating trail systems and then just kind of managing the forest area. It would be pretty high level stuff. So they're going to discuss that tomorrow. And then also I'm waiting on a proposal from Fleece and Vanderbrink to do a phase 1 environmental assessment on that property, including some soil borings. you know, I've heard about some of the previous uses, and if we're gonna start opening up to the public, I think it's a good first step to make sure that there is no contamination. Furthermore, it would be money well spent because any grants that you pursue will require that as well. So it's gonna be money well spent.
I really appreciate that. Love to see that information. I think that's something for the public to really see as well, because the airport property is out of sight, out of mind for most folks. As a matter of fact, some people have trouble finding it. They don't even know where it is because it's not marked clearly by purpose. So I think anything we can do to bring the public into the conversation about best use, people have opinions about it, and we'd like to learn more. So
Yeah,
look forward to seeing that.
And I would say that the Parks and Public Works Committee is the perfect forum for that.
Helen, you're welcome to offer anything you'd like on the airport.
I would echo the comments is that we're at very early stages and I'm really looking at, right now there's some trails in there that would like beg to be legitimized. And the idea would be to open something like that up, the trails that already exist to the public, get them familiar with the area because it belongs to the citizens of Saugatuck. And I can't think of one reason why they shouldn't be open to them.
Great. Wonderful. If there's nothing else for the manager, I will take us to item 2, treasurer. I don't think Peter is here or on the line, so we will accept that report. Planning and zoning, RC, you're here. Anything you'd like to share? Anything for Ryan Cummins at the moment?
Once again, thank you so much for the very thorough report. It gets longer and longer, and that's not a complaint. I think that's great. I mean, Holly said it weeks and months ago when you first came on. This is something that we were begging for a long time. So I really appreciate you taking the time to do it. It's very informative, and I'm glad it's in the packets because folks can see it. Thank you.
Great.
And one more thing, congratulations on your Master Citizen Planner designation. Congratulations.
Very good.
And Mayor, if I can,
Yeah, please.
I'd also like to comment and repeat what Garnet said. Love these reports. I mean, they're so detailed. You're telling us everything that you're doing with every property. Really appreciate that. And again, congratulations on your.
Agreed. Congratulations, Ryan. If there's nothing else for Ryan, I believe we have Cody on the Zoom call. Cody, anything you'd like to highlight from the DPW report?
No, I have nothing to add unless there's any questions.
No questions for me. Just a big thank you for all the work you guys have been doing, dealing with, well, the ice storm was incredible. So thanks to the team for
Yeah,
their work, trying to keep on top of that. That was a crazy couple of days last week. So thank you.
yeah, you're welcome.
Anything else for Cody?
Just thanks to DPW for all the work they were doing prior to the ice storm on all of the tree trimming around town. We do have a lot of older trees in town that just need help because otherwise they do damage. And I think they got to it before the ice storm, which is like, that worked out really well. I'm sure they still had some things that came down during the ice storm, but just getting to that at that time of the year, it was really good to see.
And we all have our power and our safe. and
Yeah, it was good timing.
Yeah, and thanks for following up with those lights right away that fell down. And I never slept. We opened up the flower shop on that day. And I thought the roads and the area, like you said, because of the pre-treating, I thought they were just fine in town that day because of you guys. So.
Good work.
Good work, DPW. Thank you.
Mr.
Yeah, go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, included on the Department of Public Works report, page 27, 28, 29, and 30. We have some white papers on the projects that you all approved.
Wonderful.
Moving forward with, so
Very good.
we anticipate using this as resident communication going forward, a couple more refinements and some cute pictures, but step in the right direction.
Yeah, outstanding idea. That's great. Thank you for doing that. Thank you to the team for putting it together. If nothing more for DPW, we do have Captain Ensfield here. Captain, anything you'd like to share on exception basis? Does anybody have any questions for the captain? Thank you for being here, Captain. Engineer report, I don't believe John is, I didn't see John on this. He's not on this Zoom. Okay, well, we would,
Mayor, one question on the report. He
Yeah.
keeps putting in a line. I don't know if everybody's seeing it, the Spark grants.
Yeah.
So he keeps dropping it in there. So I appreciate, I know John's not here, but he's putting that in front of us to, I think, kind of keep prompting us. So the Spark grants for this year have already been awarded. I think it's $25 million, and I saw the projects online. But I just want to make sure that the city is beginning to look at this in terms of what opportunities and what projects, especially given the Park and Public Works Committee. There's probably some projects that are probably appropriate for that. So I want to thank the engineer for keep putting that in front of us. It's there in every report. So anyway, just want to bring
Yeah,
that to
good
everybody's
point.
attention.
Good point. Thank you. That's takes care of item 6. Item 7, we have, we go from 7 to B1, which is the Fire District Administrative Board and Fire. So Dan, I think you can cover both bases, and we should probably correct that in future agendas so we don't double dip on that one.
Thank you, Dan Fox, your council representative to the fire board. Jamie had the numbers up there. You should have all received that summary page. And if you haven't, it's available. My comments relate to the highlights of the fire board meeting on the 20th of February, so a week ago today. A little more detailed because there are a couple of things that require that. First off, we had the official presentation from the fire district's auditors on the audit completed on the reports for last year, the year ending in July. I already provided the full audit written report to Council Member Baldwin. So that's available if you need to see it. But some top line notes that I think were worth mentioning. The total net position for the fire district exceeded 2.48 million for the year, including 16 million in capital assets. The district carries no long-term debt and the pension plan is fully funded. The auditors complimented the fire district and Peter by name for an extremely well done and exemplary financial management. I think it's common on audits that when they get into the details, you get a comment on this issue or that issue. I think we had one minor comment related to some pension piece of minutia. On the ambulance study, the fire board is forming a second ambulance working group. The first one, you may remember, is primarily medical professionals from the area. Some background, which I'll begin with a simple question. Which unit of government bears the responsibility for ambulance service, providing ambulance service to our collective constituents? Answering this key question is essential to us moving forward, especially now that Allegan County Medical Control has altered its policies on basic life support ambulance, the lower of the 2 levels of ambulance service. Oh, the answer to the question on responsibility for ambulance service is the city of Saugatuck, city of Douglas, Saugatuck Township. They have the legal authority and responsibility for providing it, just as they did and do for fire service support, which was then transferred with the creation of the fire district. Ambulance service is not, that's not been done. And in fact, the 2 ambulance services that operate within our area, Life kind of to the south and always forget the 3 letters, but ABR or something like that, out of Holland, operate on gentlemen's agreements. Long ago, yeah, okay. There's no franchise. There's no, I specifically asked the question of the individual that runs AMR. That's the 3 letters. What agreements? Because I thought it'd be nice to see other such agreements in the area. We don't have any. They don't exist. So that's an issue. The second working group in the ambulance area is going to include a representative from each of the 3 jurisdictions, as well as the fire district's legal counsel. And we're going to look into and determine how best to organize the ambulance service in our area, establishing comprehensive legal agreements. I mean, this is somebody gets hurt, that those agreements need to be very specific. Legal agreements with the jurisdictions, and that's likely going to require, I don't want, it kind of gets cart ahead of the horse a little bit, but it's likely going to require either just turning it over to the 3 jurisdictions and guys sign your own ambulance agreements, each one, or create an intergovernmental agreement between the fire district and the 3 jurisdictions to have the fire district bear that responsibility as it does for fire service. Among the other things included in those agreements will be fee structures. The private, 2 private ambulance services are just that, they're private services. They charge for service. I don't know, I'm going to pull these out of my head, but it's like, $1,700 for a trip to Allen Hospital. I mean, it goes to your insurance and then deductible and all that kicks in, whatever, but the city's not paying for it and the fire district's not paying for it. So things like that. I think part of I'll quit on this aspect of it, but part of the notion is that there's nothing free, as we all know. And in the case of ambulance service, if, for example, the fire district were to move to a situation or move to a structure where fire district would, with assuming an agreement with the jurisdictions, bear the responsibility for basic life support, that too would have a cost, and that cost would probably have to be funded through a specific voted millage for ambulance service. Not, we have headroom in the fire district's millage, but not for this. I mean, we're not authorized for this until we get authorized for that. And that's, so anyway, it's more complicated than it seems. And quite honestly, I was sort of surprised and appalled by the lack of, wait a minute, nobody's ever gotten sued because an ambulance, when they sue, who they're going to sue. And anyway, so we're getting our arms around that. Kind of in a related area, because as you know, the falls, particularly senior citizens, accidental falls and injuries resulting from them are the #1 by quite a margin call for service for the fire district. Chief Janik has formed a local task force aimed at identifying strategies and resources targeted at ways, you're never going to get rid of it, but to try and lower those numbers, lower the incidence of falls. He's included in this group so far are Girl Scout Troop 8586, Holland Hospital, and the fire district. There are a number of ideas being talked about to include, the fire district funds and provides address numbers, the green and white address numbers, so that particularly useful in township where a house can be not even in sight of the road and you don't know whether it's just a dead end or if it's somebody's house. And in that kind of sort of public service funding, the possibility of potentially either getting partners or whatever to help get handhold installations in senior citizens housing. That opens up a lot of challenges, a lot of costs involved and whatever. But it can go from that all the way down potentially to having, through the Girl Scouts or whomever, socks with the little rubber nubs or whatever you call them on the bottom, provided gratis to elderly, because that's an anti-slip protection. Neither one of those is going to eliminate falls. Both of them could operate to reduce falls. So that's just 2 ideas. These guys are going to go chase all of them. So with all of that, finally, a very sad note, which I think many of you may already be aware of from last week's storm. Pawpaw Fire Department Lieutenant Ethan Quillen died that day in the line of duty when he came in contact with a power line down by an ice-covered tree limb falling, like you said. Lieutenant Quillen was a 28-year-old husband and father. So he kissed his kids and wife goodbye that morning and went off to be a fireman for the last time. He was a Michigan Department of Transportation employee by day and a former U.S. Marine. His death underscores the kinds of risks fire service members face and police face every day, and their commitment to our safety that allows them to do that. So with respect, please keep Lieutenant Quillen's family in your thoughts and in your prayers. Any questions or whatever, please?
No, thank you for that, Dan. And Lieutenant Quillen will be laid to rest Saturday at Oakwood Cemetery in the city of Allegan. And I pray we never have a similar situation that we're all talking about regarding one of our own Saugatuck firefighters. So thank you for that, Dan. Anything else for Fire Board? Hearing none. That takes us into B2, Interurban Board. Gregory, anything you'd like to share on the interurban front?
Sure, we're in good financial position. Our ridership for January is about 92% of pre-pandemic numbers. That's really good. Our numbers have been going up. We carried 458 more riders in January than we did last year. So our numbers are up there. Our propane, our bus is still on order. We talked about that before, and that's we should be getting our third propane bus will be arriving this spring. We're currently in our 2022 annual audit process right now, and that should be finishing up shortly. Also, our hours have changed. We've extended our hours starting March 1st. We'll be going from 7 to 7 p.m. now, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Thursday, or Monday through Friday, Saturday, 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. And then Sunday will be 9 a.m. to 4 p.m.
Great.
And we'll extend them out in a couple months once we get to summer.
Great, thank you.
Saturday is 9 a.m. to 7 p.m.
Great. Anything else for Gregory? With that, I don't believe Barry is on from Cal Lake. If Barry, if you're on, speak up. Nope, nothing for Cal Lake tonight. Anything from our newest Cal Lake Harbor Authority Commissioner or whatever it is?
No, not at this time.
Okay, wonderful. ZBA, do we have any ZBA updates?
Bob Kabashik, Chairman of the Zoning Board of Appeals, and I've only been on the zoning board for over 20 years. This is the first time I've ever had to do this. And, but that's only because, thank goodness to Ryan C., he read the rules. So he's been doing that pretty well lately. And it was always our understanding that at the end of the year, we had to have a report from the zoning administrator for us to review and approve in our January meeting. And then he read also that it's supposed to be presented to the council by either the chairman of the zoning board. So here we are, right?
Welcome.
Yeah, thank you. So that's what happens when you read the rules and follow the rules.
We try.
Pretty simply, we ended up with a fairly active year for our board, so to say. We had 10 applications, and real quickly, won't bore you with anything, but in January there was one where we denied a add-on second deck to 153 Park Street. And I'm not going to get into all the details of anything like that, just all you know. There's also in February, our application was for an 8-foot high privacy fence that was denied also. That was at 336 Hoffman. In March, where there was an expansion to an existing deck that was approved. That was at 135 Van Dalsen. And then in May, we had an approval for a construction of a single car garage, which actually was about 2.7% over the lot coverage. That was at 181 Park Street. July, it was a new house that required a height average requirement of a change of 2.75 feet in height overall on the average, and we approved that variance. Then in August, we did an approval on a 10-foot by 12-foot shed at 21 or 22, 221, sorry, get my numbers going, 221 Water Street. And in, let's see, then in October, we actually had a carryover. So we had two variances in October. One started, which was started actually up in July, which was 640, 650 Park Street. So on that particular one, we actually denied two of the variances, and they withdrew the third one based on the withdrawal or the denial of the first two. And then also in October there, we had on 525 Butler, there was a request for an addition of an existing dwelling with a extended side yard setback that was already non-conforming, and that was approved. And the last one was in December of 233 Lucy Street, which is a dimensional front yard setback, which was basically it was if you recall Lucy Street, they're all pretty close to the front yard, and so that was also approved to give them a variance on their front yard setback. So I do want to say, as Garnett did, to congratulate RC. I used to call him Ryan Squared, but now I can actually say RC and yeah. So but we're pretty happy with the zoning board is very pleased with the Ryan Squared starting as we talked, and they said it's going to be a trifecta when Ryan joined us, actually meaning the law firm and Ryan. And so far, I will say that all the years I've been on the board, that the communications we've had have been the best we've had in a long time. And we're getting notices and reports, as you guys are, which are very nice. Getting heads up on things that we never used to get. Very, very informative. Really appreciate that. So our applause to Ryan for doing a good job. So keep it up. No, don't let your. Don't let all your.
Here. Anything for Bob? Thank you for that report, Bob. That was wonderful. And
Thank you.
And yeah, don't spoil RC. No. Wonderful. Historic District Commission, anything to share?
We meet this Thursday.
Thank you, Garn. That takes us to planning.
Yeah, I will not stand in front of Ryan Cummins. He's got a wonderful report that has all the details. I will say that we met on the 16th, which is 2 weeks ago now, I think. Yeah, anyway. There was one item on the agenda that was for, well, let me see here. Oh, good Lord, Russ. Hold on a second here. Special land use at 324 North Maple. And interesting, we all learned something is that they were requesting a short-term rental on a property at, again, 324 North Maple. And it was interesting to learn that a property that has a owner occupied with an auxiliary dwelling unit or owner occupied with another house, they cannot both be rented, but one can be rented. So it requires a special land use in the zoning code, and we all learned a little bit about how this works. So, and the applicant came to the meeting. He was very well prepared, excellent application, easy for us to understand. And I personally learned a little bit about that process here in Saugatuck. So anyway, I think the property owner walked away with what he had asked for, and the planning commission walked away with a little bit more knowledge. So.
Great. Thank you. Anything on the planning front you want to add, Ryan? Are you good? Okay, great.
Oh, I have one thing.
Oh, go ahead, Bob.
I also has organized. So the nice thing, we wanted to have him put together, and he did a nice job to organize it. Give us basic training, kind of refresher, which is a good idea, so we're gonna have that done.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, do you want to repeat some of that for the record, just in case folks
Yeah.
couldn't hear what he was saying?
Yeah,
I can do it too.
do you want to paraphrase?
Yeah, Ryan Cummins has scheduled training for May for the ZBA board.
Wonderful. And then for his next trick, Ryan Cummings will achieve world peace. So
He's got a few more agenda items tonight. He's got more stuff up his sleeve.
the night is young.
And so it's he.
Yes, very good. That takes us, unless there's more praise for Ryan Cummings, that takes us to Parks and Public Works. Helen, anything?
I don't want to follow Ryan, but yeah, we're meeting tomorrow. All are welcome. We can talk about airport property and anything else that's on your mind.
Great, wonderful. If nothing for Helen, that takes us to Tri-Community Non-Motorized Trail Study Group. Holly, anything you'd like to share?
We're just sort of making the transition to municipal infrastructure project and reviewing engineering documents. And
Correct.
still doing our due diligence and.
Correct. I can add a few more things if.
Yeah,
you'd like.
please.
Yes.
Please, go ahead, Ryan.
please.
Yeah, we're entering into phase 2 of the project. When we completed phase 1, we were at about 30% design level. Now we're gonna go into the next phase and that'll take us to 70% or more. We start working with the Parks and Public Works Committee to have very open, transparent meetings to discuss any of the design elements that are nuanced in the city of Saugatuck. You know, we would encourage the township to join our meetings as well, so that we're all kind of, there's continuity there between design elements, what have you. So in talks with the Friends of the Blue Star Trail group right now about potential funding to help out with phase 2 as they did for phase 1. So those discussions are ongoing, refining the proposal that we received. So there's a few tweaks that need to be made for that. And that's where we're at right now. I would envision that this work, the council will see the phase 2 contract. So after that happens, probably at your next meeting, you'll see that. And then we'll start on the design elements.
Engineering contract.
Engineering contract. Yes, thank you.
Great. Anything for, go ahead, question for Ryan or Holly, or did you have a?
Nope. I'm
Oh,
good.
okay.
Thanks.
That takes us to number 10, Tri-Community Recycling Ad Hoc Committee. Garnet, I think you'd like to share on that front?
No, just a reminder that that committee ended its purview last year in December. Daniel DeFranco and I met, I think it was 2 weeks ago before he left for vacation to talk about the next steps. So we will probably be presenting to the 3 municipalities on what we'd like to do moving forward. We would still include what occurred with the household hazardous waste days, the paper gators, but to move on a next step, which would probably involve some collaboration with each municipality's parks committee. So that's the gist of it. There's nothing that we've done to put into a formal request yet, but we're starting to move that way.
Would you like to keep this as a placeholder on our future agendas or strike it for the time
No.
being?
You can strike it until we get something, and then I think we'll come to you in a formal proposal, and we'll come to each municipality in a formal proposal for probably the next step of sustainability committee.
Oh, okay. Jamie, you're
Community.
looking at me like,
I can push through another agenda change. We'll have to vote on that.
okay,
Anything you change to the agenda.
right, okay, very good.
I could always just say no report.
Or maybe it's easier to leave it until they're back, because I'm glad you brought it up. Last conversation I had with Cal Lake, they had a lot of interest in doing a household hazardous waste pickup day, and they had some money, or they had the opportunity for some money to support that, I think through advertising.
Yeah.
And I urged them to contact you and Daniel, and I know Daniel's been overseas, so just good to know.
I'll have something for y'all.
Okay, great. Well, Jamie, we'll just keep it then as a placeholder. Great. That takes us through reports. And now we have no requests for payments. Item 11, we do have approval of accounts payable. That's going to be a roll call vote. That's 12A, and it's on page 36 of your packet. We have an accounts payable in the amount of $714,000, $935.67. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion Lewis, second Leo. Any discussion on accounts payable?
Mr. Mayor, I would just comment that a vast majority, I didn't run the percentages, but vast majority of its past through taxes collections.
Good point out, Russ. Thank you. If nothing else, this is a roll call vote. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Baldwin,
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Gardner,
Yes.
Leo,
Yes.
Lewis.
Yes.
Muncy.
Yes.
Stan.
Yes.
Motion carries. That takes us to item 13, introduction of ordinances. We have no ordinances. We have no public hearings, which is item 14. We have no unfinished business, item 15. That takes us to new business, item 16. First item is an AT&T project update, and I believe our city manager is going to kick that one off.
I sure am. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members of council, I've prepared a PowerPoint presentation to give you an update on the AT&T project. Which you're gonna get a sneak peek at as we roll through the slides. Okay. AT&T cellular improvements. Next slide, please. All right, so today, really briefly, I'm gonna touch on the history of the project, talk about who's involved in the project, where the project stands now, and then what the next steps are gonna be. Okay, what are we even talking about? So people that may not be familiar with this project, this is turning out to be an amazing private-public partnership, the private side being AT&T, the public side being the city of Saugatuck. And what we're talking about is a new cellular tower installed within the existing dome at Mount Baldhead. And to sweeten the deal, we've been in talks with AT&T about constructing restroom facilities that would be housed adjacent to their facility that they need for their generator and other cellular equipment. So we'll get to that. Next slide, please. All right, here's the timeline, high level timeline of what's happened with AT&T to date. Actually, the cellular conversation started, I was introduced to this before I was even hired. The council that interviewed me, I think every council member had this at least in their top three items to be addressed in the city of Saugatuck, improving cellular service. So we worked with Verizon, now we're turning to AT&T. Or have been working with AT&T. So it started back in 2021, March, they reached out to the city. So they came up with this thought themselves. So city staff began coordinating with allowing access to the site, assisting them when needed to get their equipment up there. So our DPW team helped out with that. And then we begun in 2021 to coordinate with other entities to try to understand what equipment exists in the ball. And so examples being like Allegan County Emergency Services has equipment up there. So and I guess there used to be a TV camera up there, which has been decommissioned. So anyways, we had to go through a process of figuring out who owns what. And then let's see, in 2022, early 2022, I met with the AT&T Legislative Affairs person in charge, and meeting was in actually Birmingham. I was in Detroit for a conference and I met up with him for beverages. He and his wife, who is a city council member in Birmingham. So we traded a lot of stories, but it was a good way to start out the relationship. And I got to tell the story of Saugatuck and generate some interest with that meeting. So our continued interest, I should say. So January 30th, they've been working on plans, which again includes their facility that they need, also how they're going to run their conduits up the hill, and also the equipment they need to have as part of the tower infrastructure. So we got those. I'm going to share those with you. And let's see, we will hopefully by April begin to work on final design and permitting. So that's kind of a March through August. They want to start this work fall of 23. They want to be done before the new year. They say before the snow flies. It's a pretty aggressive project. You'll see it's been moving very, very quickly as of late. So next slide, this will give you an idea of the different groups that are involved. So we got AT&T, but they have two subcontractors working under them, DPW. Frontier for fiber, AT&T had to go out to do whatever procurement process they work with, finding out who's going to provide fiber. Frontier came out on top. So also with that, we've been working with Allegan County Broadband. That's Jill Dunham. She's amazing. She's very behind this project, and she's a wonderful pit bull when it comes to like making sure that we're getting some services. So she's lovely to work with. And she knows a lot about the business because that's what she used to do in a past life. So she's great as a resource there. Michigan Gas Utility, they're gonna need a generator for this project, which will be placed, you'll see in the slide, at the bottom in the parking lot area. But the good news is it's the gas run generator rather than diesel, and it's actually, they're planning to house it within natural gas, yep, sorry. They're gonna house it within the facility rather than having it exposed. Communications with Historical Society, I have a note here on SHPO. So we have to be very sensitive to the historical designation that Saugatuck has recently received. So the contractor is in direct communications with the SHPO guy for the state, and he's got all the files and all the paperwork that was used to submit the application and the award of the SHPO designation. So they know what's going on there. Allegan County Emergency Services, City Engineer, Cal Lake Sewer and Water, had a discussion with them this morning, communication with the fire department, city admin, of course, Consumers Energy, Eagle, and yeah, that's the short list. Next slide, please. So where are we at? What's next? AT&T has already done their feasibility study. So they look at RF means radio frequency. So they wanted to make sure, they took a bunch of equipment up there. They wanted to make sure that they could send their signal outside of the dome, the fiberglass dome. So they're good there. They have enough juice to pump out the signal. So they're happy. And they did all their structural testing as well to make sure their equipment's gonna be supported by the existing infrastructure. So both of those results came out very well, and that's why they're moving forward with the project. As mentioned, we received the preliminary design recently, and we're gonna have council approve that. This may come as soon as your next meeting, but we can talk about that when we get to that slide. Parks and Public Works Committee, yep, as mentioned, they're meeting tomorrow. They're gonna see these plans as well. And hopefully they can weigh in on some of the aesthetic elements of this facility. Talk about that in a second. Agreements that are going to come in front of the city council. You're going to have long-term lease agreements with AT&T. MOU, memorandum of understanding for the construction phase, given that this is a joint partnership. So I want to be very, very clear on who's doing what as it relates to construction of the facility in particular. And then I mentioned engineering design proposal. That ties into the fact that the Parks and Public Works Group is actually looking at a parking lot redesign of that whole area. So we've got a proposal from Fleece and Vanderbrink to assist that group with coming up with ideas, documenting them, and producing a product that we can bring to city council. All those meetings that the Parks and Public Works Committee is going to have, they're going to be open to the public. We're going to try to get people to, because I know this is a highlight, it's a jewel of Saugatuck, and people have opinions about it. Most of them are very strong. So we want those people to show up and partake in the discussion. And then permitting, we have Consumers Energy, but more importantly, I think is the Eagle. It's in the Critical Dunes area, so we have to be very on top of that as far as submitting that permit. So we'll have the engineer work with us on that. He's already started that work in anticipation of making a submittal here. Eagle takes a while to get past their permit, so we want to get that in as soon as possible. So we'll show you that when it's ready. Okay, here's the site, the overall site layout. To the left of the screen, or my left, is the top there with the tower, and then the lines going down, those little hash marks, those are 3 conduit that are going to be required to be installed. They're going to have to helicopter in a boring machine from on top of the hill and bore down. They're going to bring a helicopter in for a lot of this heavy equipment.
Whoa.
I know, it's
Nice.
it's
great.
it's a project. They've agreed to throw another conduit in for the city of Saugatuck for future use. I don't know what we'd use it for, but I'm sure we'll find something. If it's free, we'll take it.
Yeah.
And then the restroom facilities you can see down in the parking lot. I have well, zoom into that, but I'll just show you, tell you now that the little square next to the steps, that's the existing restroom. If it's still standing, I don't know if it was earlier today, but I think it's on its last leg. And what we're recommending is a shift of the new facility further away from that building, kind of tucking it into the park, in the corner of the parking lot area. This will leave space for the visioning of that will come from the Parks and Public Works Committee for the rest of that space. Next slide, please. So this is the facility that AT&T is proposing, and they're just leaving a shell for us on one side for our restrooms, and then they're going to build their facilities in the other two spaces you see. Next slide,
And as you
please.
mentioned earlier, the generator will be enclosed.
Yes, yeah, we brought up the fact that there's two homes there in that immediate area. In fact, we'll have to plan on doing some vegetative screening of the shelter and meet with these residents and let them know what's going on.
Yep.
Very early on. So we're kind of at that point now that we have some plans.
And just one more clarifying question while we go along.
Mhm.
The generators for emergency use if they lose their normal power.
Correct. Yep. And that'll be exercised weekly, make sure it's in good operating. So I don't know what day and time, but hopefully we won't hear it and we won't care. So that's just a survey of the property that they did on the left there. And that's an aerial on the right. Next slide, please. All right, so as mentioned, AT&T is going to allow us to design the aesthetics of this building and figure out our specifications for our restrooms. And so we engaged Felice and Vanderbrink, the engineer, to start that process, at least give us something to chew on. And there's two options that you see there. Option one to your left, my left, and then kind of the split unit over to the right. And I have my personal favorite of these two options, but I'm going to hold that information back until we have the discussion with Parks and Public Works. But if you go to the next slide, I can share with you some design elements that we're already talking about internally here. One of which would be, why don't we just match that existing pump house? It's got some style and there'd be some continuity there. If the Historical Society ever should construct something else in that area to display their radar equipment in the parking lot so people can access that, they too could copy something, with the same architectural theme. Drinking fountains, of course, is associated with that water filling station as well.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
Nice.
I won't get into the details of this, but those are some basic elements. So that's where my wavelength's at. But there's a lot more talented people that work on this stuff in the city of Saugatuck for a living. And so we'll just see where this discussion goes. But hopefully we can have something here pretty quickly for AT&T to incorporate into their plans. Next slide, please. This is the top of the hill. This is the infrastructure they need to put in. Next slide, please. Really. So there's the tower, the existing tower in the ball, and then their equipment goes inside. So that's the vertical view. There's a little, I don't know what I can't read it anymore. It's like a power box or something there at the bottom that's going to be required. I've talked to them about the sensitivity of the site, everything that they can put underground. If there's any opportunity to screen some of their equipment by tucking it into the corner of the L-shaped building, please do that. They've been very open to any ideas as far as, helping out with aesthetics and getting stuff out of sight, out of mind. Next slide, please. So this is inside of the ball, and there's some pretty nifty equipment up there. I should have included a picture of some of it. They're going to need to remove some of that equipment, and we'll work with the group that was put together that did the SHPO designation. I've already mentioned it to those that have been involved with getting that SHPO, Chuck being one person. And Chuck Gustafson, who's a pretty amazing man, had mentioned that he would like to get some of that equipment out of there for display. At least that's what I got out of the conversation, but it's pretty heavy stuff. I said, boy, do I have an opportunity for you. I got some guys that will do, guys and girls that could do your heavy lifting and get that equipment out. So I'll just pause there. I don't know if there's any comments on that portion of it.
Well, I think this is the big challenge that you're identifying here is, that radar sale is a large kind of mesh of copper wiring. The reason it's probably still there is because nobody could have stolen bits of it, but there's tons of copper in that sale. It's fairly, even though it's made for military purposes, I think it's fairly delicate. That will be the challenge in terms of what we do with that and how we can sort of preserve that bit of history. So that will be a challenge. But I'm not surprised that AT&T has come to this conclusion. A radar antenna is designed to basically capture radio waves as they bounce back. So you can certainly see that this could be a complicating factor for their ability to actually transmit and receive, this large rate. We had conversations, Russ will remember this, talking about things called Faraday cages, which are designed to capture radio waves, and they're usually big copper boxes, if you will. And so that's the challenge. And I'm glad you're engaging with Chuck. He's probably one of our best experts on it. So, yeah. But yeah, if there's any questions at this point, if you want to carry on.
No, I was just gonna mention, I talked to Dr. Eric at the Historical Society as well, about this project, sharing these plans with him. And he said what I thought he would say is like, well, if you can keep this stuff intact, that's amazing, and you should make every effort to do that, because if it's cool now, just think about how cool it's gonna be in another 40 years or 80 years. And so we're hypersensitive to that. So we're gonna do our best to work with that group. Okay, next slide, please. Some other random thoughts, since we're getting fiber into that area and we're gonna have a restroom, why not try to get some Wi-Fi? That would be our first adventure into city-owned Wi-Fi. Maybe the CVB could own the landing page, and then they can have all the maps on there to go over there wherever they want. We'll talk about that later on. But just to start that relationship and put our toe in the water with AT&T on a Wi-Fi project, I think would be a very good thing to do. We have a meeting scheduled with their legislative affairs person, I think at the end of next month. So we're gonna start planting some seeds about downtown Wi-Fi as well at that point. Reestablish native vegetation and talk to AT&T about some of the history next to the stairs there with the vegetation. And so we talked about revegetating that area. So I think there's an opportunity there. I think consumers, they indicated that they would like to partner on that project with funding or something else. So they're being very generous, but also I think that's because we're about to get into our long-term lease negotiations. So they're trying to sweeten the coffee on the front side here, maybe a little bit, but they've been a wonderful group to work with. And yeah, I look forward to going forward with this project. It's a big deal for Saugatuck. Any questions? Oops, there's some next steps, but I think I've already talked about these. Yeah, I've already talked about this.
I do. Just curious, it just ran through my head while we're talking. Is there any part of the contract that just ensures, I mean, what if they start working on this and something happens and I don't know, maybe they break the dome or there's any kind of damage to the dome? What if a year down the road it catches fire because of their equipment? Is there any kind of clause that kind of, says that they would replace that icon if something like that happened?
Yeah, you're gonna, so if that's what on the front side, that's what the MOU for construction is gonna be about. It's like, all right, what are you doing? And all the insurance, all that stuff will be handled up front. I think for most items that you just mentioned, that's going to be included in the long-term lease that we have with them.
Okay.
Who's responsible for what
Great.
happens if stuff's damaged, all that stuff's going to be included. And we actually already have that boilerplate lease from AT&T that's already been sent off to the attorney, so they're reviewing that.
Okay, just curious.
Yep.
And that's a legal review, all
Correct.
that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
Great.
There's a lot to digest here. So I appreciate seeing the information this evening and thank you, Mayor, for giving me a heads up on the presentation itself. So a lot of questions. One big question I have is for AT&T itself. Is this going to be an exclusive arrangement for AT&T? In other words, if another vendor approaches us, is there room for more technology up there? My presumption is that AT&T wants exclusive use of this for an extended period of time. In other words, no other vendor will have access to any of this equipment or the site for an extended period. It's my assumption.
I
They're
assume the same. In fact, I think I read that in the lease language that they're gonna be the
Yeah.
sole
That's
provider.
troublesome for me personally and as a council member. This is a public asset and again, the devil's gonna be in the details on this. I'm very curious to see the arrangement, the memorandum of understanding. So
Noted.
Great. Any other
No,
questions from the council? Thoughts on the presentation?
thanks for the very thorough update. It's
Yeah,
wonderful
appreciate
to
it.
see it happening.
Yeah, I'm, once again, as you noted, Ryan, the community has identified
Mhm.
telecoms bandwidth is a huge issue in this community. It's always been at the top of our community surveys. It's been part of our strategic planning for a couple of years now. The opportunity to create a public-private partnership to not only preserve some of Saugatuck's history, but also to maintain an important asset and to actually accomplish some of the things that we're trying to accomplish with our parks. It's quite an opportunity, and I look forward to continuing the dialogue with AT&T on this. I'm quite excited about where this conversation could go. Thank you.
Yeah.
Just one other
yeah,
comment. I'm
go ahead.
excited to be able to call from the Oval Beach for a ride to go home.
So that was my question. Will we have signal at Oval Beach?
Yeah, and
That's a
I'll,
safety, such a safety
Exactly
issue
right.
that we've been talking about.
exactly right. Yes, very strong at Oval Beach and then extends out into Lake Michigan quite a few miles.
That's
Great.
The safety implications for people that use the water and people that use the beach could be quite profound. So,
Yes,
yeah, thanks.
absolutely.
And one final note, Mr. Mayor. I'm
Yes,
sorry.
please. Yeah.
Just to add that this benefits the area regionally, meaning that, AT&T doesn't cut off people from the township
No,
if they're,
or Douglas.
trying to get get their signal. So this is a benefit to the region.
Exactly. Very good.
And I just want to add that I'm so impressed with this presentation and the level of cooperation and interfacing with so many different entities. I'm really excited about it. It also ticks quite a few boxes in terms of bathrooms and, regenerating that flora and fauna on one side of the hill. That's been such an issue. So it really checks a lot of boxes, and it's really nice to see the Parks Public Works Committee. It's a very holistic, cohesive solution. So I'm really happy to see it and look forward to sort of tracking things as we go and
Yes.
seeing how it goes.
Great, great.
Well done.
Thanks. That covers AT&T. I'll take us to new business item B. This is actually something we will be voting on tonight. This is a fee increase proposal. It will be a roll call vote. It's on page 38 and Ryan Cummins is going to take us through it. Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor and city council members. Any attempt at world peace will probably end tonight. As I bring fee increase updates, so I'm burning through any capital I might have right here, so. The city's various ordinances and state laws allow you to set fees for the provision of permits. And so since I've started with Saugatuck about 6 months ago, I've kind of recognized that there's certain common permits that are applied for that have no fee established right now in our fee schedule, and there's no charge for staff's time in reviewing them at all. And then there's been some other fees that seem to be well under the current costs to process and issue a permit. So taking a pretty extensive look at the current fees that are in the fee schedule, and what I found was that in the case of zoning fees, most of them haven't been updated in nearly 20 years. In fact, it may be longer than that. The oldest fee schedule that the clerk and I were able to find was from 2005. So they could have been in place even before that. But we're kind of probably due for a little bit of a discussion about some updates. Give you just a kind of a couple quick examples. In the case of planning commission reviews, if something goes to the planning commission for a site or a special land use approval, the cost to pay the planning commission members and to print the public hearing notice in the paper costs more than the $300. That alone would cost about $310, which is more than what you're charging. So there's no charge essentially right now for any staff time that's involved with reviewing and processing applications, corresponding with applicants. There's no charge right now for any of the professional reviews that we're conducting with our consultant planner, or any cases that are maybe more complicated and have more challenges that we're coordinating with our city attorney on. There's no fee for even preparing mailings and actually mailing out that public hearing notice that's required by state law. In the case of the historic district, and this is probably something that have I'm really curious to hear what the council's thoughts are on this tonight. In the case of the historic district, there's actually no actual fee that's being charged for historic district reviews. So sometimes a historic district permit, there's some rules that allow for it to be administratively approved. So those may be less intensive, but there's many others, as Ms. Stanton and Ms. Lewis know, that go to the full historic district commission. And there's real costs to that, and staff time in evaluating those applications, reviewing them against the historic district standards, preparing those reports, and then actually attending the meetings themselves. And then there's some other fees related outside of zoning and historic district. There's street and curb cut permits. So that relates to if you're doing a water sewer connection, if you have to cut into the actual street itself. We actually, there's an escrow fee that we can charge right now, although over time that escrow fee's kind of been eroded, that essentially whenever they're done cutting into the road and hooking up to water and sewer, we want to make sure that road is put back to our specifications. So an engineer has to be on site, do some compaction testing, make sure that they're using the proper materials, and that there's an extensive cost to that, but there's no charge for actually reviewing the initial application or processing that on my part. There's not a fee for right-of-way permits. So this is a situation where we have, somebody's going to tear off a roof. They need a dumpster and they need to place it in the right-of-way, and they're going to take up some parking spots. There's review and requirements in our ordinances that they have to meet. And so there's no charge for that at this point. And then there's no actual sewer connection application review charge. So we certainly have water and sewer connection fees that also haven't been updated in a while. And I think in the future, you're going to see us probably come back with some broader recommendations on those. But those fees go towards your actual infrastructure costs, not the actual time it takes, which we're coordinating with our city engineer on to review those applications to make sure that they're using the proper materials and connecting in the proper spaces and connecting in the right way. So I kind of conducted a pretty extensive fee analysis to kind of take a look at, how much time, on average does it take for the various permits that we see on a regular basis. And so we looked at things like corresponding with the applicants, from the very beginning, reviewing those permit materials and applications, actually doing that record keeping and data entry, preparing public hearing notices, publishing them in the paper, mailing them. It takes time to sit down and stuff envelopes, actually preparing reports and preparing meeting packets, actually attending the meetings themselves. We have to prepare minutes afterwards. We have certainly professional reviews that are involved with kind of the change in how we review things. So those are certainly quite a cost to us. So in validating all of those costs, I've made some recommended fee changes to you in the form of a resolution this evening. It doesn't cover all of the costs. For example, overhead costs were not included. This is simply looking at predominantly, the staff time that's involved. Another key component that we took a look at, especially it was a tool that we have called escrow deposits related to our zoning reviews. So your zoning ordinance essentially states that for any permit that is needed under the zoning code, we have the discretion to request an escrow deposit from the applicant for professional reviews. And the way that essentially works, and in fact, there's some situations where that's actually required depending on the size of the building or the number of units that they're building. So in the case of 640, 650 Water Street, they had a zoning board of appeals application recently, as Chair Kobajiak was mentioning. That was one where we're required by the zoning ordinance to collect an escrow deposit. And actually we did recoup a large portion of our costs through that, which was a good thing. But we do have some discretion with all of our other permits that we issue as well. And so the way that would work was they would pay the normal application fee. That fee is what it is. And then the applicant would pay an escrow deposit. In this case, I've recommended kind of a set amount. And then anything that's unused, they get back at the end. So if they submit a complete, thorough, rules compliant application, that should take less time from a professional review standpoint. and they should get, much more of that maybe deposit back. If they're submitting an application that maybe needs several reviews by our professional planner, or they're submitting materials that maybe it's a really complicated or trickier review that we need legal assistance and review on, then we can charge those professional reviews through that escrow deposit process. So one of the key factors was kind of looking at a fee comparison. And so our friends at the city of the village of Douglas, your neighbors, just recently underwent this exact same review earlier this month. So I've been able to look at their kind of updated fee schedule, looked at the Saugatuck Township's fee schedule, looked at South Haven, who also went through a very similar review. All three of those communities are using escrow deposits for professional reviews and collecting them up front. And a lot of their fees would be, we can only charge up to our actual cost, but it's important to kind of see how we would benchmark. We would benchmark in line with what those other communities are charging. So setting fees is a policy decision that all of you get to decide what that amount is. You can charge up to your actual cost. And some communities attempt to do that, and other communities attempt to charge some of the costs and then use those, general fund tax dollars to maybe offset some of those costs, because there's an overall benefit to the community and the regulations that you have in place and folks and having them in place and having folks follow those. And so some communities are willing to kind of put some money in on that end of things. So happy to answer questions or go through any of the fees, in more detail.
So it sounds like we need a resolution to enter deliberations, or should we do Q&A with Ryan first before we deliberate as a council?
I'm ready, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
Motion to approve resolution 230227-A, the change in the city's schedule of fees.
We have a motion from Lewis. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Baldwin. With that, discussion.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I want to thank Ryan and the staff for putting together this study. I am not in favor of voting yes this evening, nor am I in favor of taking action on this evening. This is a lot of change. I don't feel a compelling need to approve this evening. I've got a lot of questions about application of these fees in certain situations that would need to be answered by me in terms of understanding how this can be applied to our citizenry. I actually had an email from a resident who questioned this, specific to a situation that she's going to be coming into in the near future. And I wasn't able to answer a question about the logic behind the fee increase. And that's challenging for me as a council representative, as a council member and resident. I just think at this point, I want more time personally to be able to understand this and ask more questions this evening in respective time for everybody. We've got a review to do and some other business to take care of this evening. I'm a no. I would actually be in more support of tabling this or postponing it for discussion at a workshop. A lot to digest.
Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Lauren.
We didn't have a chance to workshop this, so I do feel that we probably need more time to just have some question and answers about all of this, because some of these fees are pretty high, and I'm sure everybody's going, oh gosh, I have something coming up and that's going to cost me an arm and a leg. But also understand you've done a tremendous amount of research on it, and we always appreciate, the work that you've done. But I would appreciate maybe a workshop to be able to go through some of this with you.
Mr. Mayor, I absolutely agree with Lauren and Russ as well. I think that this is something because of such the increase, so that we understand why the increase is more when we're talking to folks on the street, and we're able to answer why such an increase. This is definitely, I think, should be a workshop item and or a special meeting.
Holly, any?
I agree with what's been said. I appreciate this. It's not world peace, but it's nonetheless quite impressive piece of work. But I think really for the public, I think we need to maybe not vote tonight and have a workshop so that people can weigh in. And I think you know, it's fair if we haven't raised these rates in 20 years to have that discussion. So I say we have that discussion at a workshop.
Helen, you were the second. Anything you'd like to say at this point?
I think it's probably time to increase the fees. I think that Ryan's done a lot of research. I think that we need to count on our city staff to do their jobs. And I believe that these are probably fairly come together. I trust Ryan to do the work. They haven't been raised in 20 years. And I think that there's really nothing wrong with asking people if they want to apply for variances and things like that, that they might have to pay a fee to do so.
Garnet, you made the motion. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, we hire our staff to make these deliberations, to do the research. I appreciate not only that we've asked our surrounding municipalities, but also that our legal has been involved and has reviewed this. This is why we hire you all. It's not something that you ever enter into lightly. So I certainly appreciate the consternation, but at some point in time, we're going to have to start charging appropriately for the services that folks want, especially when it's taking a great deal of our staff and committee members' time. So I'm happy to withdraw the motion and move to table to the workshop in a week. That's fine. But I don't think we should delay this. I mean, I joined council because things were kicked down the road for many years. And, you know, I think we need to make decisions, and we can make those with the staff expertise that we have. I'm
sympathetic to a number of the viewpoints expressed here. And yes, you know, we do have to make hard decisions, and these decisions can be hard, particularly when this issue has not been addressed in so many years, which then results in what can appear to people to be eye-watering increases because we haven't been thoughtful over the years in managing this properly. But I am very sympathetic to Lauren's point of view. I'm a big believer in us bringing things to workshops, workshopping them in a little bit more of an informal context, and then being in a position where everyone feels more comfortable about what they're voting on. But I do agree we're headed in this direction. We need parity with our neighboring communities, and some of these fee increases are long overdue. And so I think we do need parity. So my question is how we approach this. You know, we have a motion. You're willing to amend it or to
happily
withdraw it?
If we just have Helen support that.
Yeah,
Certainly, yes.
All right, so I have support from both council members to withdraw their motion.
now you need a motion to table.
And so now we will need a motion to table.
I will make a motion to table this resolution until the workshop meeting, which will be on March.
First, eighth.
Oh,
It'll be the eighth.
March.
To the next,
Eighth.
the 8th.
Yes, thank you.
Second.
March 8th.
All right,
Yeah.
so motion Gardner, second Stanton to table. Do we need any discussion on tabling?
Thank you.
Once again, though, directionally, I mean, I am in agreement with a number of members of council that, you know, we have to do these hard things when they hadn't been done in the past for many, many years, in some case decades. And we do need parity with our neighboring communities. So with that, though, I will entertain the roll call vote on this item. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Baldwin.
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Gardner,
Yes.
Leo,
Yes.
Lewis,
No,
Muncy,
Yes.
Stanton.
Yes.
All right, motion passes to table this item for the next workshop.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Excellent presentation. All right, next is not a voting item, but it is short-term rental task force next steps. And Ryan, you still have the podium.
All right.
world peace.
Possible.
Hopefully a step closer to peace again. So yeah, kind of an update, since the city council at a special meeting established a short-term rental task force. The next step is kind of identifying the members. And so after your special meeting, your city clerk was right on it, and that very evening kicked out an email blast to the community and started accepting applications for your short-term rental task force that you established. And so just kind of wanted to provide a little bit of an update on where we're at as far as number of applicants, kind of what we've discussed with the mayor and planning commission chairs as it relates to potential meeting times and dates and next steps. So everybody's probably wondering how many applicants we've received so far. So far, there's been 16 applications or expressions of interest in one way or another. 11 of those have been from city residents and 5 from non-city residents. We received 2 applications from a member or from someone attempting to represent the retail, restaurant, or lodging business owner community. 2 applications from a short-term rental property management group. 6 from a residential zone who hold a short-term rental license and or is positive about short-term rentals. We've received no applicants for a resident member from a commercial zone who is not the owner of a short-term rental. 2 from the real estate realtor community with no short-term rental ownership, and 2 from a residential zone who is not a short-term rental owner and who feels negatively impacted by short-term rentals in their neighborhood. It's anticipated, at least, that if we have a good enough applicant pool, that we've advertised it as the applications will close on March 6th at 5 p.m. It's anticipated then that the interviews will occur over that next 2 weeks. The mayor, myself, and Chair Mans. Mayor would then bring his recommendation to, if he's ready, to the March 22nd City Council workshop with for a council discussion and then an ultimate council vote on March 27th on the members of the short-term rental task force. And then we're aiming for that first meeting of the task force then to be right at the beginning of April. What we've discussed as far as meetings and trying to meet the timeline that's been established for the task force and the amount of work that's anticipated is that this task force, we've advertised it as, folks need to be available to meet up to 2 times a month. We're hoping for those meetings to occur kind of right at the end of the day, but also right before the evening to kind of, there's going to be folks that are going to fall in both categories as far as what's going to work for them. So we've set it for 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. Then the planning commission chair at this point has suggested the first and third Thursday of the month, with the third Thursday being the planning commission meeting each month, and that those members could then report back to the planning commission and kind of have some immediate discussion about, what's been discussed in that particular month. Staff has prepared a draft professional services request, making final touches on that, but that is essentially close to being ready to going out. And then once a consultant is identified, we'll make sure that is communicated and brought to the city council and have them lined up for your this task force to get started in early April as well. So that's the update that I have at this point and what the work that we've done in the last couple of weeks. Thank you to your city clerk too for preparing this wonderful color-coded chart of who's applied and what areas, and she broke it down way better than I could. So that came from her. So thank your clerk for that.
Great work.
So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Helen.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I was curious to know, has the planning and council reps been selected yet?
They have not. Nope, not to my knowledge. I know the planning commission chair was working on it. The mayor may be able to.
I had a discussion with Chairman Mans about this, and it's our intention to announce or to recommend, I should say, all of the members of this group at the same time. So the council and the community can have a sense of the thought that went into trying to create a diverse group that answers as many of the needs that were out identified in the kind of prospectus, if you will. So the thought is, rather than to just announce a few people and be like, well, oh, it's already heavily weighted this direction, to do it all in one, so people can kind of get a sense of the logic that hopefully myself and the chairman can present in terms of the diversity and the breadth of experience that we're trying to bring to this work group. So hopefully that logic makes sense to the council. Anything else for Ryan? Ryan, thanks you. Amazing night. World peace, but you tried.
Next week.
Next week, yeah. So that concludes new business. That takes us to public comment. We have our final public comment period. This is for any item. 3 minutes is the limit. Anyone in the audience that wishes to address the council? I see none. We're losing people quickly. Anybody on the Zoom call that would like to address the council? 3 minutes. I don't see any hands, Jamie. Nope, I think we don't have anybody on the Zoom that would like to comment, so we can close item 17. Now, that takes us to item 18, closed session. Pursuant to MCL 15.268A of the Open Meetings Act, the city will enter into closed session to conduct the annual city manager's performance review. I will need a motion to take us into closed session.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to enter into closed session pursuant to MCL 15.268A to consider the evaluation of city manager Ryan Heiss.
Motion by Leo,
Second.
second by Stanton. This is a roll call vote.
I'm here.
Gotcha.
Tina, Baldwin,
Yes.
Dean.
Yes.
Gardner,
Yes.
Leo,
Yes.
Lewis.
Yes.
Muncy,
Yes.
Stanton.
Yes.
All right, we are going to enter into closed session. We will turn off the Zoom. We will kick out everybody that needs to get kicked out.
Just gonna grab water.
This is the Saugatuck City Council meeting for February 27th, 2023. We are now back in open session and the time is 9:25. With that, we're at item 19 to take any necessary action as a result of our closed session. Any action taken will be roll call voted.
Mr. Mayor, if I may,
Yes, go ahead, Helen.
I move to give city manager Ryan Heiss a 10% raise in his annual salary.
A second.
Okay, we have a motion Baldwin, second Lewis, to give the city manager Ryan Heiss a 10% raise to his annual salary. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Baldwin.
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Gardner,
Yes.
Leo,
Yes.
Lewis,
Yes.
Muncy,
Yes.
Stanton.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Repeat the motion in second, please.
Motion was
The
Baldwin.
motion was,
Oh, go ahead.
I move to give city manager Ryan Heiss a 10% raise in his annual salary.
Second was.
Me, Lewis.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And now we have a second motion, I believe.
Yes, I would like to take a crack at this.
Okay.
I want to make a motion to amend section 14 of the city manager's contract as follows. The severance or increase the severance for termination without cause from 6 months to 6 months and 1 month for each full year of employment not to exceed 12 months.
Second.
So we have a motion, Leo, second Stanton. Any discussion on this motion? Hearing none, this would be another roll call vote for the clerk.
Baldwin,
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Gardner,
Yes.
Leo,
Yes.
Lewis,
Yes.
Muncy,
Yes.
Stanton.
Yes.
I do.
Oh, she does.
Yeah, Holly's written it down for you, and Lauren has some meeting minutes from closed session for
I
you.
already gave those
Oh,
to
you gave her, wonderful. All right, with that, is there any other action necessary under item 19 that would require a council vote? Hearing none, I'm going to close item 19. Take us to 20. We have correspondence. It's in your packet. 21, we are council comment period. We will go around the horn. I'll start with you, Helen, if you don't mind.
I'll keep it short and sweet. TPW meets tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. Anyone, please come and hang out with us. And the other thing I want to do is make sure that we do not overlook the fact that our council member Garnett Lewis has been selected by Governor Whitmer to serve on the Michigan Travel Commission. First time someone from our city has been appointed, and I'm very excited.
That's a big deal. Really big deal.
You took that, you took my thing. I wanted to congratulate also Councilor Garnett on your position with the state. I'd like to hear good things happening. And so it'd be nice to hear you report
Mhm.
on the things that you're doing there with that. And also I'm thinking about events coming up. We've got the euchre tournament, for raising money for the, high school for their new uniforms, by the Saugatuck Athletic Boosters. I know CJ signed up for that. You've got people signed up and you can hang out there at the Ivy House, on the 4th. And even if you're not playing for $15, the hors d'oeuvre spread looks amazing. And they've got a lot of great items for silent auction. It really looks like you guys, the boosters, have really put this together as a great fundraiser, and I wish you the best of luck.
I also want to congratulate Garnett. I'm so excited about that because we, one thing we learned during the pandemic when we got on the phone with, you know, communities, communities from all over the state is that Saugatuck was not always represented. And so I'm really glad that you will be representing us and so proud of you. That's pretty amazing for our town. So, and that's it. I have no other comments.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say the same thing. This is a big deal. You know, often I've met with Dave Lorenz forever back in my TV days. And, you know, it was always Traverse City and Mackinac Island, and there was all these other places that always got the cover and did all those things. And we're finally, you know, Saugatuck has really elevated itself and now we're represented and we'll have a voice. And it's a real honor that you were chosen, Garnett. So that's fantastic. And looking forward to playing some euchre on Saturday. I mean, how apropos to have, you know, a fundraiser Michigan style with a little euchre. So that the group of people that are on that board, they love playing euchre. So it all worked out really nice. So it'll be fantastic. Yeah.
I will be there as a player, so I hope I get matched up with someone good because I'm a super competitive card player. So just be aware, just be aware. So next Monday, March 6th at 6 p.m. is the police and community event. And Lauren and I have been collaborating on that along with Captain Ensfield as well as Under Sheriff Mike Larson. So Monday, 6 p.m. at the high school for 90 minutes. We will be giving a little bit of update on the police activity, a little bit of information regarding the contract, which we recently renewed, and open discussion with the community. So everyone is welcome. This is not a Saugatuck exclusive event, but it is going to be focused on Saugatuck services with the Allegan County Sheriff's Office. So please join us. Should be a good time. Hope to get a lot of questions. Also, too, I happen to be talking with Holly Engel, and I don't know if the property on Water Street has renewed the Ingalls charter boat lease for another year.
Oh.
So whatever's going on there. So anyway, no action needed. So I didn't mean to step on your toes. Or, yeah, but just so everybody knows. Yeah, good information.
Thanks, Russ. Garm?
So Vicky and I have signed up for the euchre tournament and Vicky is a wicked euchre.
Get ready.
It's gonna get dicey.
Bring it on. Bring it on.
Shows no mercy. Venetian, really quick. Yeah.
Go ahead, Garm.
Venetian Festival, Helen and I will probably start reporting out quite often. The committee's been meeting every second week. Actually, Lauren is a part of it now too. I wrangled her into it. So we'll be completing that special event permit pretty quick and coming to the city. Yep, this month is our goal for that. So stay tuned. But a great group of people working with that. And lastly, regarding the Michigan Travel Commission, I certainly appreciated it. I think I've shared with just about all of you. It is less about me and it is much more about our community and what it says about what we have done. And to have us a seat at the table, I can hardly wait to see what that brings for us. I think it's gonna be cool. So and you know how I am, I'm kind of like a dog on a bone. You know, if there's a chance for Saugatuck to benefit, you can pretty well count on the fact that Saugatuck's going to benefit. So I'm excited. Our first meeting is the 13th of March, so I won't be here at the next meeting. So, sorry, that's where I'll be.
Well, I'll just, once again, Garnet, congratulations. Great news for Michigan, great news for Saugatuck. And Ryan, congratulations for turning in another great year for the city.
Yeah.
Congratulations for that.
Thank you.
And I look forward to seeing you all at the Euchre tournament. And remember, turn down a Bauer and lose for an hour.
For an hour.
And with that, Jamie, apologies for once again
Man. we're
burning the midnight
close.
oil, but I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Wow. Stanton
and Leo.
and Leo. Yeah. All in favor, please say yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Meeting adjourned.
All right, good. Good.